So, hello everybody, and welcome to the poster session of the second International Conference on Public Policy, Diffusion and International Cooperation. During the session, we will have the chance to learn about the researches that Professor Osmani Porto's students have conducted under his supervision. And at the end of the presentations of these works, we will actually select a winner among them. By the way, my name is Giulia Romano. I am a postdoctoral researcher at the Institute of East Asian Studies of the University of Duisburg-Essen in Germany. I focus actually on public policy analysis in China, and I am one of the organizers of the panel on policy diffusion, policy transfers in East Asia, together with my colleague Kijis again from the National University of Singapore. So today I will be one of the committee, let's say one part of the committee who actually selected the winner, will comment and select the winner of the poster presentation. This said, let me begin by saying that due to the very difficult conditions in which we are all finding ourselves, this year only 2 students, so 2 ladies actually, decided could participate and to the poster session. So what we are going to do today in the minutes that we are going to spend together is to listen to the 2 presentations. And actually this will be 2 recordings because the students unfortunately today could not participate to the session. And then I will offer my comments together with announcing who the winner is. So without further ado, let's go to the first video, the first presentation, which is the poster of Beatriz Terrim. I hope I'm spelling the name correctly, which is titled Internationalization of Public Policies and Analysis of the Transference of the Conditional Cash Transfer Program from Brazil to Peru, Juntos.
Good night, everyone. I'm Beatriz Sanchez from Brazil. I'm a student of International Relations at the Federal University of São Paulo, and it's a great honor to be here presenting my research focused on how the Conditional Cash Transfer Program Juntos in Peru has suffered influence from the Bolsa Familia program in Brazil. The main objective of this research was to analyze the implementation and internalization of public policies, especially the Brazilian influence on the Juntos program in Peru. Thus, the development of the research was based on examining the bibliography of policy diffusion, as well as the specific bibliography, mainly official, of the Peruvian government. Observing the context of origin and reception of a policy with actors in national and international level, the translation and adaptation dynamics are necessary for the policy to fit into a different context from which it was formulated and then to be successful. To define conditional cash transfer program specificities, first, it is important to recognize that they are public policies that differ from other transfer policies due to their conditionality. Thus, this program established 2 main objectives: to provide low-income families with a minimal level of consumption and to foster the accumulation of human capital, breaking the vicious cycle through which poverty is perpetuated. About the Juntos program in Peru, in 2005 was created the Programa Nacional de Apoyo Directo a los Más Pobres, Juntos, the first statistic in the country, which is considered the program with the greatest coverage and budget within the scope of Peruvian social policies. However, the incentive is conditional to the fulfillment of signed commitments, which also aim to guarantee the participation of families in the areas of health, nutrition, education, and the national registry, promoting the principle of family-state co-responsibility. About the conditionalities of the program, Children under the age of 5 must maintain regular medical follow-up. Women, especially pregnant women, must regularly visit health facilities. And children between the age of 6 and 14 must be registered and have their identity document as well as be enrolled and attend schools regularly. About the impacts of the program in the country in 2005, before the implementation of Juntos, 48.7% of the whole population of Peru was under the poverty line, but in 2010, 5 years after this implementation, this number was 31.3%, which demonstrates the impact and importance of this CCT to the country. Also, the program has contributed to a 50% reduction of poverty in the countryside, according to information published by the government. Furthermore, the impact in education and health areas are significant. For example, the number of children enrolled in schools has increased since then. All this information represents the importance of Juntos to fight poverty and misery. Likewise, in Brazil, the Bolsa Família program is a CCT instituted in 2003 aimed at families in poverty and extreme poverty throughout the country so that they can overcome the situation of vulnerability. Still, the execution of the program took place in a decentralized manner through a combination of efforts between the federated entities, observing intersectionality, community participation, and social control. To compare Juntos and Bolsa Família, we should note the variable that activates the mechanisms for the diffusion of policies in the case of CCTs, as the existence of a regional consensus among a group of influential professionals about their effectiveness in comparison to other social intervention programs. In fact, it can be said that, in short, there was a certain degree of encouragement from the Brazilian case, since the objectives, conditionalities, the mode of application, and the institutions operating the programs are similar. First, both programs were created to face similar problems, considering similar socioeconomic realities. Second, both programs applied similar conditions in the areas of health and education, focusing on children and pregnant women. And third, both programs have decentralized management. To conclude, between the Peruvian and the Brazilian governments have contributed to the implementation of good practice, including the Juntos program. These research sought to contribute with the studies of the policy fusion field, focusing on the specific case of the bilateral relation between Brazil and Peru. Thank you all for the attention.
Okay, thanks virtually to Beatriz for sending us a video with the results of her poster, so with presentation with the results of her study. And now we can see together the video with the presentation of the study by Giovanna Vaz, who focused on the internationalization of public policies, analysis of the transfer of nutritional food security from Brazil to Peru.
Finally, about my research of international public policies, analysis of the transfer of nutritional food security from Brazil to Peru. So first, what is nutritional food security? It's linked to the guarantee of food for low-income individuals as a way to eradicate hunger. And they state to guarantee protection against the current period of hunger health projects. About Zero Hunger program in Brazil, it consists of policies aimed to ensure nutritional quality food involving structural social policies. The main object is combating hunger and food insecurity by initiatives ranging from financial aid to school meals, health support for small farmers. This program was a considerable example for other countries, mainly because it implemented the fight against hunger as one of the government priorities by a president. In Brazil, studies about policy diffusion are recent, which is why it's necessary to take an integrated approach in the scientific field in order to foster a debate and expansion of this important agenda for public policies. And the justification for this study was to show the importance of nutritional food security approach, which is part of the United Nations Social Development Goals, and understand the whole process of disseminating policies between Brazil and Peru. The methodology was used was a case study, and the process reconstruction technique developed by the International Public Policies Laboratory. And based on the results, the general term of zero hunger was chosen for the research because it's a program that encompasses all food-oriented policies, like family farming and school feeding policies. Through the analysis of the news and the observation of topic covered, it was possible to note that the internationalization process of these policies can be carried out through the research taken by the Brazilian government. And regarding the bilateral technical cooperation relations and agreement relevant to the study between Brazil and Peru, one of the main documents signed by two countries was the cooperation agreement between Brazilian Cooperation Agency and the Peruvian Agencies of International Cooperation in 2012, which involved an exchange of knowledge between the Brazilian Minister of Social Development and Fighting Against Hunger and Peruvian Minister of Development and Social Inclusion. And this agreement aimed to support the Peruvian Minister articulation and coordination in development and social inclusion policies and programs. Conclusion, it was possible to observe the influence and participation of different actors for the implementation and diffusion of public policies around nutritional food security. The emphasis on international organizations and the active Brazilian participation in multilateral events of far turning attention to this very relevant and important topic for discussion and decision making, which is the fighting against hunger and food insecurity. Finally, the technical cooperation agreements between the Brazilian and Peruvian ministers have brought great advances to developing implementations of public social policies, including food security policies. And social cooperation and the Brazilian action in the face of social guidelines disseminate to that country through participation in events, visits, and technical supports served as inspiration and made Brazil an expert of good practice regarding nutritional food security policies. So that's it, and thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot again virtually to Giovanna, who, as Beatrice, could not participate today. And thanks a lot to Miwa for supporting me. What I'm going to do right now is to basically offer the comments, some comments that me, myself, together with Raul Pacheco Vega of the Latin American Faculty of Social Science in Mexico, collected together after having looked at the two research projects and the videos of Giovanna and of Beatrice. So what I'm going to present today are basically is a synthesis of comments both from me and from Raul, because unfortunately he's not here today. He apologizes, but he has been retained by a previous engagement, and unfortunately this collided with the poster presentation session. So first of all, I want to thanks the organization, thanks to Osmani, thank Miva, thanks to Osmani, thanks to Miva, and for having invited me to do this exercise, because it's new. It's also very interesting, I should say, and especially for me, as I said before, I am a China specialist. I work particularly on the topic of policy transfers to China and also more recently from China. And listening to the students' presentations gave me the chance to learn about Brazil's promotion of its very innovative policies to fight against poverty, the channels that this country follows, as well as the very interesting solutions that it exports. So again, thank you very much. And above all, a great thank to the girls who shared with us their work. So, of course, what I'm going to say is that both Raul and I found ourselves sharing the same opinions and the same evaluation of the two posters in contention. And so what we decided to do is also to use the opportunity of this poster session to make some constructive comments to the girls, who we both actually praise for the courage to publicly present their first research work at this very early stage of their studies. This is not to be taken for granted, and also for having kept on track despite the various difficulties that we are all experiencing, teachers and students, with the pandemic. And let me say something in my mother tongue, which is in Italian, but actually it's a congratulations to the girl, bravissime ragazze. So the two posters that Raul and I had the chance to read both deal with the internationalization of Brazilian programs and policies to fight poverty, focusing in particular on their reception in Peru. In particular, the poster of Giovanna is interested in the transfer of a food program to fight against hunger and promote food security, which is called the so-called Zero Hunger Program. I try to spell it in Portuguese, Fome Zero, which has been developed in Brazil in the early 2000s under the presidency of President Lula. And it has then been promoted in Peru via different channels, via different mechanisms in the early 2010. As for the poster of Beatriz, this deals with the appropriation of Peru of the so-called conditional cash transfers, which are known in Brazil with the name of Bolsa Familia. And both programs have been very important, actually, solutions to try to fight against poverty and improve the life conditions of millions of people. As I told, the theme of the two posters are somehow very much equivalent, as they both are interested and both focus on transfers from Brazil to Peru, and what basically changes is the policy which is transferred. So this makes the comparison between the two proposals very easy. And given these very particular conditions, both Raul and I decided actually to select the poster of Giovanna Vaz as the winning one. And I'm going to explain why. We both think that Giovanna's work is the one that adheres most to the initial research questions, the one that sticks most to the initial research question. In the introduction, Giovanna tells us that she's interested in analyzing the drivers that made Brazilian policies and models travel outside the country. And in order to explore them, she uses the very famous and classical framework of questions, which has been developed by David Dolowitz and David Marsh, which allows her to draw some useful lessons about the transfer of food programs from Brazil to Peru. Although I shall say, as a little criticism or remark, the presence of Peru is somehow diluted in the text. It's diluted in the discussion, and you can still find something in the conclusion, but it can be noted that Giovanna has remained focused on analyzing the drivers and the mechanisms that have allowed a policy made in Brazil to find a good reception abroad, and in particular in Peru. Unfortunately, we're not of the same opinion in the case of Beatriz, who, while having introduced her poster as a study of the internationalization of policies made in Brazil, she makes actually her discussion is all centered on the reception of these policies in Peru. And in particular, it's really focused on the design and on the implementation of the conditional cash transfer program Juntos, which is the Peruvian translation and adaptation of the Brazilian Bolsa Familia. So if you don't actually pay attention to the introduction of the study, in the discussion session, you cannot guess that this program, this Juntos program, was inspired by the Brazilian experience, and that this is a study of policy transfer. A little later then in the discussion, the poster shares some elements, some comments about the design and the implementation of the program in Brazil, so as to establish a comparative perspective with Peru, but there is no discussion about centered on policy transfers, except in the conclusion, where this question returns back. So for this reason, we thought that the poster of Beatriz could benefit of a little bit of reworking that reshapes either the question of research, assuming or accepting the comparison, adopting basically as focus of her study the comparison of the effects of the program in the two countries, so focusing on their design and then on their implementation and then comparing them, or there could be a change in the discussion part, and this time basically focus the research on the process and the actors that have allowed the transfer, so the internationalization of this Brazilian program, this Brazilian policy in Peru. We found nonetheless that the data presented were very interesting. I was actually very pleased to know that of the good results of these policies, both in terms of an effective transfer, because Peru adopted this policy from Brazil, and in terms also of bringing, that's the most important thing, of bringing substantial change in the lives of thousands of people. This said, I actually want to offer some comments actually to further encourage the girls to go ahead and research in this topic, and do research on these topics. I'm not aware of the state of the literature, so how much we know about these programs, and being a China specialist, I'm really far away from knowing that. But if I were to give some advices to both of you, and if you are willing actually to follow us in this wonderful world of research, my suggestion would be really to follow these programs through time and focus on their changes through time, as well as focus on the aspect of the sustainability of these programs over time and concomitant with the different political changes. Why am I telling you this? Why I'm suggesting you to put this focus, to go towards this direction? One of the things that I learned from studying public policy in China is that so many interesting and innovative initiatives, which are often developed by the local governments in China. I mean, local governments are known for being sites of a lot of policy innovation and experimentation in China. Well, a lot of these initiatives then tend to disappear after a few years because of political changes. So a lot of positive dynamics which are set in motion by the implementation of certain policies and of certain measures, they are abruptly interrupted as soon as there is a change of at the top of local governments. This happens very frequently, actually, and this is a problem which is very much known in the community of scholars who focus on do analysis of domestic issues in China, in particular public policy analysis. And I really wonder I'm very curious to know what kind of dynamics we can find in other countries of the world pertaining to this aspect of sustainability of policies, of programs. And in particular, I'm very curious to know what happens in those countries that we have the habit of calling developing countries, but even if probably I think that certain categories over time have become a little bit obsolete. Another recommendation that I feel to give, and so another interesting research question that can be explored is precisely the translation of these policies. So how they are adopted and adapted in other contexts from compared to the place where they have originated. So what is exactly adopted, what is left aside, if anything, what is added, what new meanings and objectives are attributed to the adoption of certain policies, what purposes then these adaptations serve, etc. These, I think, there are all questions that make the so-called globally policy transfer studies a very, very exciting field of research. And finally, both Raul and I would like to re-emphasize that policy transfer studies, policy learning, policy diffusion studies, it really needs the kind of work that both of you are doing and what you are doing together also under the guidance of Professor Osmani Borto. These works, I think they are incredibly necessary because they allow us to rethink how we approach the field and also to provide more insights from countries which have been historically less explored or even neglected by the policy transfer studies. This is changing, of course. In the recent years, we have seen an emergence of studies coming from the so-called global south, but we need to understand more. We need more researchers. And so both Raul and I are extremely excited about the possibilities that you will continue with this kind of scholarship and continue doing research on this topic. So once more to both Giovanna and Beatrice, well done. Keep going. And I really hope that this experience has allowed you to understand how interesting, how fascinating these research questions are, and to take also a look, to have a glimpse at one of the most beautiful professions in the world, that of the researcher, hoping that our passion, and only that one, has somehow become contagious. So I finish here my comments. Is Osmani there online?
Yes. Hi, Julia. Thank you. Thank you very much, Julia, Julia and Raul for reading the paper, the posters, for watching their videos, and for all the work done thinking about this works, this research, and offering also comments to both Giovanna and Beatriz. Your words were very encouraging, and I hope that they can include this in their work or think about their future as international relations experts when they finish their undergraduate course. So I would like to say a few words about this poster session, which is something that we introduced in the past International Conference on Policy Diffusion and Development Cooperation. And it is the main objective of this session is really to stimulate undergraduate students to participate, to engage with such kind of international event, and also with international scholars working on policy diffusion and development cooperation. So last year we established this idea of giving an award, which is a recognition also to stimulate young students to continue in their research. Obviously, it's not our intention to have a competition, but the idea is really to encourage students to pursue their work in this area. So thank you very much, Julia and Raul, for doing this, for evaluating, for your precious comments. I would like to highlight and to reinforce the importance of young scholars or undergraduate students in studying policy transfer and development cooperation, because we really need you engaging in this field. There is a vast topic of a vast number of topics of public policies traveling from here and there that can be researched, and that is still not covered by the literature. And it would be very interesting to have information about topics that can be social policy, as the papers of the posters of today, but also urban policies, agricultural policies, security policies. Basically, we can have examples of policy being transferred in the most wide topics of public policies that we experience and live in our everyday lives. When we take public transport, when we have our health care, when we have our healthcare in our countries, and so on and so on. So it's really interesting. It will be really interesting for you to engage in such kind of research. Another element that is very interesting to be researched is the impact of the development, sustainable development goals, and for example, fighting against poverty, hunger, gender politics, all the sustainable development goals can be better understood and researched by young students as undergraduate students. So you can choose a lot of topics from here and from there on your research. And finally, your research is not important only for the area of research, for academics, for political science, public policy, international relations, but it's also important for you to, in your own formation as an undergraduate, in your own training as an undergraduate student. Insofar as, for example, my students have been learning different skills of doing research, seeking for information, synthesizing information, and analyzing political objects or public policy objects in the pathways of diffusions and development cooperation from one country with another country, and so on and so on. And this can be very interesting also for undergraduate students in their own professional future. If they're going to continue doing research in their master's studies or PhD studies, but also if they are going to work on international organizations, NGOs, or even in municipal city halls, in different secretariats, and so on and so on. So I like very much this session of the conference, the poster session of the conference. We were happy to receive. We received about maybe 7 proposals for this year, but unfortunately, with the situation of the pandemic and the changing of the conference to an online event, only 2 were able to participate. And for this reason, I would like to thank all those who sent proposals. I would like to thank especially Beatriz and Giovanna for attending to this session. Thank again Julia and Raul for their comments, and I really hope that both Giovanna and Beatriz can keep doing research in their future, and I'm sure that they are going to be brilliant professions in their future. So thank you very much, and it was a pleasure to be here today, to follow the comments, to see the videos, and that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.